My name is Fiona Ashby, and I was 36 years old when my husband sent me away from my own home on Christmas Eve. Not asked me to run an errand. Not suggested I come later, sent me away. He stood in our front hallway wearing the navy sweater I bought him for our anniversary, one hand on the doorframe, blocking the house behind him like I was a stranger trying to sell something. In the dining room, I could see our table set for 8 with the good plates, the tall candles, and one empty chair where my place card should have been. My husband, Bennett, lowered his voice and said, "My boss's family is already on their way. His daughter is sensitive, and tonight needs to be perfect. You make rooms feel heavy, Fiona. Please don't ruin this." Then he handed me my coat. The exact stake was a $740,000 hospital renovation contract and the regional director promotion he had chased for 3 years. I knew that because I had printed the proposal binder for him, proofread his community impact statement, and baked the cranberry tart sitting on the sideboard. But by 9 o'clock that night, a local news camera would show me sitting in a diner booth with a terrified 15-year-old girl wrapped in my coat after I pulled her out of a dangerous rideshare situation in the snow. That girl was Bennett's boss's daughter. And when the news anchor said my name, the same room that had been too perfect for me went silent. Because Bennett had to explain why the woman protecting Mr. Renwick's daughter was the wife he had told not to come home. Before I tell you what happened next, welcome back to Hush and Tell Stories. If you have ever been pushed out of your own place because someone needed you invisible, this story is for you. Tell me in the comments what you would have done at that front door, and subscribe if quiet truth is the kind of ending you understand. I grew up in Duluth, Minnesota, where winter is not a season as much as a personality. Snow piles against windows. Wind comes off Lake Superior like it has a grudge. People learn early to keep jumper cables in the trunk and kindness in their pockets, because out here, leaving someone stranded is not just rude. It can be dangerous. My father died when I was 17, and my mother folded into grief afterward. By 22, I was managing bills, appointments, and hard decisions most girls my age had never seen. I learned early that nobody was coming with a rescue plan. That is probably why I became a county housing intake coordinator. My work was not glamorous. I helped families facing eviction, teenagers aging out of foster care, women leaving unsafe homes, elderly tenants confused by paperwork, and exhausted parents who had one broken car between them and homelessness. I listened to people on their worst days. I read leases. I copied court notices. I filled out forms. I called shelters at 4:58 on Friday afternoons when everyone else was already putting on coats. Bennett used to say he admired that. In the beginning, he did. When we met, he was a project coordinator at Lakefront Meridian Group, a company that managed renovation contracts for hospitals, schools, and nonprofit facilities. He was handsome in a controlled way and wore ambition like cologne, not overpowering at first, just noticeable. He came to a county housing forum because his company was bidding on a transitional shelter renovation. I explained what actual families needed from the building: laundry rooms that worked, bedrooms with locks, warm light, and a separate entrance for people fleeing danger. Afterward, he found me near the coffee urn and said, "You made that room stop pretending design was just paint." I liked him immediately. That was the dangerous part. For 2 years, Bennett listened. He picked me up after late shifts. He brought soup when my mother was sick. He asked about the clients I could not name. He said my softness was strength. He said I made him want to become less selfish. Then we married, and slowly, almost invisibly, my strengths became inconveniences. My work was admirable until it interrupted dinner. My compassion was beautiful until it made him uncomfortable at parties. My ability to stay calm in crisis was useful until I stayed calm with him. By our 4th year, Bennett had moved up at Lakefront Meridian. His new boss, Charles Renwick, was the kind of man people described in bullet points: disciplined, respected, connected, decisive. He oversaw the hospital division and controlled the contracts Bennett wanted most. Charles's wife, Claudia, served on 2 charity boards and had the careful kindness of a woman who had learned that privilege does not protect you from fear. Their daughter, Marin, was 15 and rarely seen at company events. Bennett said she had anxiety. He said she was sensitive. He said the Renwicks protected her privacy. I understood that. I worked with teenagers who carried panic like a second B. Akpag. But Bennett did not want my understanding. He wanted my absence. The first time I met Charles and Claudia Renwick, Bennett corrected me in the car before we went inside. Just keep things light, he said. Sometimes you go into intake mode. At the event, Claudia asked what I did, and I told her. Not dramatically, just enough. She listened closely and said, I wish more systems were designed by people who have actually sat with families in crisis. On the drive home, Bennett said I had made the conversation too heavy. Fiona, I am trying to get them to see me as executive material. I need my life to look stable. My life, not our life. That was the first crack I heard clearly. By then, Bennett had begun performing marriage instead of living it. He wanted photos of us at charity dinners, but not conversations in the kitchen. He wanted a warm home, a polished wife, and a life that suggested depth without requiring vulnerability. We had no children. That absence became another room he avoided. We had tried for 3 years and lost 2 pregnancies. After the second miscarriage, I called for him from the bathroom floor and heard him say through the door, I can't do this right now. I have Charles's follow-up call in the morning. He apologized later, kind of. After that, visible became a dangerous word in our marriage. If I cried, I was making the house heavy. If I mentioned therapy, I was dwelling. If I avoided baby showers, I was bitter. If I worked late helping a mother and 2 kids get emergency shelter, Bennett said I had chosen strangers over healing. He liked my kindness best when it made him look good. That is a sentence I wish I had understood before Christmas Eve. The invitation came in November. Lakefront Meridian was competing for a $740,000 renovation contract at St. Adalyn Children's Clinic, a project funded through a private donor partnership and overseen by Charles Renwick's division. The contract was not the largest in the company, but it was the one Bennett wanted because it had public visibility, hospital board attention, and a direct path to the regional director role opening in March. He talked about it constantly. He said the clinic would change everything. He said Charles needed to trust him on a personal level. He said Claudia cared deeply about family-centered spaces, so the Christmas Eve dinner at our house needed to feel warm, sincere, and not too corporate. Our house, I asked. Yes, Charles does not want another restaurant dinner. He wants to see how I live, how we live. Bennett paused a little too long. Of course. I should have heard it then. For 3 weeks, I helped him prepare. I ordered evergreen garland from a local florist because the artificial one in our basement smelled like dust. I borrowed extra chairs from my friend Nadine. I made a menu that would suit Claudia's gluten sensitivity and Marin's vegetarian preference, which Bennett mentioned twice as if remembering it proved he was attentive. I polished the silverware my mother left me. I washed the guest towels. I cleaned the mudroom because Minnesota Christmas means boots, salt, and wet wool. I also printed Bennett's proposal binder at the county office after hours because our home printer jammed. I paid for the color tabs myself because he forgot to pick them up. I edited the community impact section because his first draft used the word vulnerable 6 times in 2 paragraphs without once describing what people actually needed. You saved me, he said when I handed him the binder. I smiled. I still wanted that sentence to mean love. The morning of Christmas Eve, snow began falling before dawn. Soft at first, then steady. The kind that turns streetlights golden and makes every sound outside feel wrapped in cloth. I woke early to prep vegetables and set the table. Bennett was already downstairs, pacing with his phone. He had a crease between his eyebrows that meant ambition was masquerading as stress. Charles confirmed, he said. 6 o'clock, Claudia, Marin, and his mother-in-law. Good, the tart is done, soup is ready, I just need to roast the squash. He looked at the table. Maybe use the ivory napkins, not the green. The green looks Christmas without being too much. Ivory photographs better. I switched the napkins. At noon, I went to the county office to finish emergency housing vouchers for 3 families before the holiday closure. Bennett had asked me not to, but emergencies do not care about corporate dinners. I promised I would be home by 4. At 3:18, he texted, "Don't wear the red sweater, too bright." At 3:42, "Please do not bring up shelter work unless asked directly." At 4:06, "Actually, maybe let me lead conversation tonight. Charles needs to see me, not us." I sat in my car outside the office, watching snow collect on the windshield, and read that last line 3 times. Not us, me. IT. Ipt Bennett, what is going on? He did not answer. When I got home at 4:38, the porch lights were on, candles were lit inside, and our wreath had been straightened. I carried in a bag of rolls I had picked up from the bakery, stamping snow from my boots. The door opened before I reached for my key. Bennett stepped out and pulled the door almost closed behind him. That small movement told me everything before he spoke. "Why are you standing outside?" I asked. He glanced toward the driveway, then back at me. "Fiona, I need you to hear me calmly." I looked at the house behind him. Through the narrow gap, I could see the table. 8 settings, tall candles, the cranberry tart on the sideboard, a small folded card near the foot of the table that said Mrs. Hallstrom, Charles's mother-in-law. No card with my name. "Where is my place card?" He exhaled sharply. "Please do not start with that. Start with what? Making this personal." I almost laughed. I was standing on my own porch in the snow while my husband blocked my front door, and he wanted me not to make it personal. "Bennett, where am I sitting?" His jaw worked. "I think it would be better if you spent the evening somewhere else." The snow seemed to grow quieter. "What?" "Just tonight, Charles's daughter is coming. Marin, she is sensitive. Claudia said holiday stress can be difficult for her. I cannot have any tension." "What tension?" He looked at me then, and the man I had married disappeared behind the man who needed a promotion more than he needed to be decent. "Your grief, your work stories, the way you look at people like you are waiting for them to break. You make rooms feel heavy, Fiona. Tonight needs to be perfect." I held the bakery bag against my chest. "I cooked this dinner, and I appreciate that. I cleaned this house, I know. I edited your proposal." His voice dropped. "Do you want credit or do you want me to get this contract?" There it was. The cruel sentence does not always come shouted. Sometimes it arrives dressed as logic. I looked past him again. On the entry table, he had turned our wedding photo face down. I do not know why that hurt most. Maybe because sending me away was a decision. Hiding our photograph was evidence. "Did you tell them I would be here?" I asked. He hesitated. "I said you might be called into a shelter emergency." A lie built from something honorable. That was his specialty. "So I am not your wife tonight. I am a convenient absence." He held out my coat. "Fiona, please, do not ruin this." I took the coat because my hands were starting to shake, and I did not want him to see. "Where am I supposed to go?" "Nadine's or a diner, anywhere for a few hours. I will text when they leave." A few hours. My marriage had been reduced to a weather delay. I could have screamed. I could have pushed past him. I could have thrown the rolls into the snow and told him exactly what kind of man accepts a wife's labor and rejects her presence. But I had spent too many years in crisis rooms to confuse volume with strength. I placed the bakery bag on the porch table. "The rolls are for the soup. Warm them at 350 for 8 minutes. His face flickered, shame maybe, irritation more likely. "Fiona." "And the tart needs to come out of the refrigerator 20 minutes before serving." Then I turned and walked back to my car. He did not follow. That is the part people always want to argue with later. They want to say he was stressed, he was under pressure, he panicked. He did not mean it as badly as it sounded. but he watched me walk down our icy steps on Christmas Eve carrying nothing but my purse, my coat, and the knowledge that my own home had been staged better without me. And he let the door close behind him. I drove without knowing where I was going. Nadine was out of town visiting her brother in Madison. My mother was gone. My father had been gone for almost 20 years. The county office was locked. I could not go sit in a shelter on Christmas Eve and bring my own humiliation into someone else's emergency. So I went to the Blue Spruce Diner. It sat near the highway, open 24 hours, with a neon sign shaped like a coffee cup and windows fogged from heat inside. Truck drivers stopped there. Nurses after late shifts. Snowplow crews, people between places. The waitress, Marcy, recognized me because the county sometimes bought boxed lunches from them for outreach trainings. She looked at my dress, my good coat, my empty hands, and said nothing except, "Booth or counter, honey?" "Booth, please." She put me near the window and brought coffee without asking. Outside, snow fell through the parking lot lights. Inside, a plastic Christmas tree blinked near the pie case. A little boy in dinosaur pajamas slept with his head on his grandmother's lap. Two plow drivers argued softly about routes. A man at the counter ate meatloaf like it had personally forgive. And him. I sat there in my navy dress, the one Bennett said looked stable, and tried not to cry into diner coffee on Christmas Eve. At 6:12, Bennett texted, "They arrived, please do not call." At 6:41, dinner going well. At 7:03, Charles loved the soup. The soup I made. At 7:29, Marin is quiet but okay. Claudia seems relaxed. Thank you for understanding. I turned the phone face down. Marcy came by with a plate of fries I had not ordered. "Kitchen made extra," she said. "No one makes extra fries by accident on Christmas Eve. Thank you." She leaned slightly closer. "You waiting on somebody?" I looked out the window. Not anymore. She understood enough to leave the check far away. Around 8:05, I decided to go home when the roads looked better, not because Bennett texted permission, but because my wallet, my medication, my laptop, and half my life were in that house. I paid at the counter, left Marcy too much money, and stepped outside into the cold. The snow had turned sharper. Not a storm exactly, but wind had picked up, pushing flakes sideways across the lot. I pulled my coat tight and started toward my car. That was when I heard crying, not loud. A broken, breathless sound near the side of the diner, where the dumpsters sat behind a wooden fence. I stopped. At work, you learn the difference between ordinary crying and fear. Ordinary crying comes in waves. Fear comes in fragments, like the body cannot afford full sound. I walked slowly toward the side of the building. "Hello," the crying stopped. I did not move closer. "My name is Fiona. I am not going to touch you. Are you hurt?" A girl stepped from behind the fence. She was maybe 15, thin, bareheaded in the snow, wearing a silver sweater, black pants, and dress shoes completely wrong for weather. Her hair was wet at the ends. Her mascara had run down her cheeks. She clutched a phone with a cracked screen and looked at me like she was trying to decide whether I was safer than the dark. "I need my mom," she said. "Okay, we can call her. Are you hurt?" She shook her head too quickly. He wouldn't let me out at first. I told him I was going to throw up. He said he had a better party. He said my dad would pay if I was nice. I jumped out at the light. I ran. I don't know where I am. Every nerve in my body went still. A dangerous rideshare situation. A teenage girl in dress shoes in the snow. Christmas Eve. I kept my voice low. "You are at the Blue Spruce Diner off Highway 61. You are safe right now. We are going inside. I will call 911 and your mom. You can stand beside me or behind me. No one is touching you." Her face crumpled. "My phone is dying. Mine is charged." She looked toward the road. "What if he comes back? Then he will find a diner full of witnesses. Come with me." I took off my coat and held it open toward her, not wrapping it around her without permission. "May I?" She nodded. I put it over her shoulders. She was shaking hard. Inside, Marcy saw my face and moved before I said anything. "Back booth," she called to the kitchen. "Now." The plow drivers looked up. One of them stood and went to the window without being asked. I guided the girl to the back booth. She slid in, clutching my coat around her like a blanket. "What is your name?" I asked. "Marin." My breath stopped for half a second. Marin. There are coincidences that feel too dramatic to be real, until you are living inside them with wet shoes and a police dispatcher on the phone. I did not say, "Bennett's boss's daughter." I did not ask why she had left my house. I called 911. I gave the location, the girl's condition, what she had said, and the description she could manage of the vehicle. A dark SUV, pine scent air freshener, driver with a red knit hat. First name maybe Vic, maybe Nick. Rideshare arranged after she left a holiday dinner because she panicked and wanted to go home. The driver had canceled the ride in the app after she got in, saying he knew a shortcut. Marin started shaking harder when she heard me repeat that. I looked at her. "You did the right thing getting out." She whispered, "My dad is going to be so mad." "Your dad can be scared later. Right now, you are safe." Marcy brought hot chocolate and a clean towel. She did not ask questions. Good women in diners know when questions are for later. "Can you tell me your mom's number?" I asked. Marin shook her head. "It's in my phone. It died. I know Dad's, but he'll yell." "We can call him together, or the police can." She looked at me then, really looked, and something in her face shifted. "Were you supposed to be at dinner?" I felt the question like a hand on a bruise. "Yes." "At Mr. Ashby's house?" "Yes." Her eyes filled again. "I saw your picture." I froze. "What picture?" "In the hallway, it was turned around. I thought that was weird." I closed my eyes for 1 second. "ND." Even the teenage girl having the worst night of her life had noticed what my husband thought he could hide. I opened them. "Marin, what matters right now is getting your parents here." She nodded. I called the number she gave me. Charles Renwick answered on the first ring. "Who is this?" His voice was not corporate now, it was raw. "Mr. Renwick, my name is Fiona Ashby. I am with Marin at the Blue Spruce Diner. She is safe. Police are on the way. She needs you and Claudia." Silence. Then, "Fiona Ashby." "Yes." A muffled sound, then Claudia's voice in the background frantic. Charles came back. "Is she hurt?" "She says no. She is cold and frightened. I have her inside. Please drive carefully. We are coming." In the background, I heard Bennett. "Fiona." The line went dead. Good. I did not have the room in me for him yet. The police arrived first. Officer Sloane McCabe, according to her badge, and a younger officer whose name I forgot because Marin's hands were shaking as she tried to answer questions. I asked if they had a youth advocate. Officer McCabe said one was on the way, but weather might delay her. I told Marin she could answer slowly, and when she looked at me before speaking, Officer McCabe noticed. "You can stay if she wants you to," the officer said. Marin nodded so quickly my coat slipped off one shoulder. "Please," so I stayed. I sat beside a girl I had never met inside a diner, while police took a preliminary statement, and Marcy kept hot chocolate coming. I watched snow melt from Marin's shoes onto the cracked vinyl floor. I watched her try not to cry when she explained how she had left the dinner, because the adults kept asking questions, and Bennett kept saying how comfortable the house was, how stable the home felt, how important family spaces were for vulnerable young people. Vulnerable. The word from his proposal, my word originally. She said she had gone to the upstairs bathroom and texted for a ride because she felt trapped. She said she made it 2 miles before the driver started saying things that made her afraid. She said when he canceled the ride, she knew something was wrong. She said she waited until the SUV slowed near the traffic light by the diner, then opened the door and ran. "I left my purse," she whispered. Officer McCabe said, "You left a bad situation. The purse can be found." That was when the news van arrived. At first, I thought they had followed the police scanner. Later, I learned they were already filming a Christmas Eve road safety segment near the highway because of the snow. A reporter named Holly Vance came in with a camera operator, saw the police, the diner, the shaken teenager, and the woman in a navy dress sitting beside her without a coat. Officer McCabe kept them back. No cameras on Marin's face, no identifying details, no interference. Holly was respectful. She spoke with the officers, then with Marcy, then asked if I would say something general about helping someone in distress. I said no at first. Then Marin whispered, maybe someone else would stop if they saw. So I agreed to 10 seconds. I stood near the pie case, arms folded because I was cold, hair coming loose, makeup gone from crying I still refused to do fully. Holly asked what people should do if they see someone alone and upset in dangerous weather. I said, do not assume someone else will help. Keep distance, use a calm voice, bring them into a public place, call 911, and let them keep as much control as possible. Fear already takes enough from people. That was all, 10 seconds. I did not know those 10 seconds would break the room Bennett had built without me. Charles and Claudia arrived at 8:47. I know because I had started documenting in the Notes app on my phone. Time mattered, details mattered, not because I planned revenge, but because crisis has a way of rearranging itself after powerful people enter. I had seen it at work. The person with the title becomes the center. The person who needed help becomes a problem to manage. I was not going to let that happen to Marin. Claudia came through the diner door without a coat zipped, eyes wild, scanning until she saw her daughter. Marin stood halfway, then collapsed into her mother's arms. Charles stopped beside the booth, one hand on the seat back, like his legs had almost failed. "Thank you," he said to me. I nodded. There is no graceful way to receive gratitude while wearing the coat you gave his child, because your husband made you leave your own house. Bennett came in behind them. He looked wrong in the diner. Too polished, too controlled, navy sweater under a wool coat, dress shoes slipping slightly on melted snow. His eyes found me, then Marin, then the police, then the news camera outside, calculating damage before feeling anything close to shame. "Fiona," he said softly. I looked at him, not angry, not yet, just clear. "The rolls needed 8 minutes," I said, his face anged. He understood exactly what I was saying, not about bread. About what he had chosen to remember, and what he had chosen to discard. Claudia pulled back from Marin and looked at me more carefully. "You are Bennett's wife, yes." Her eyes moved over my dress, my bare arms, my coat around Marin's shoulders. "You were not at dinner," Bennett stepped forward. "Fiona had an emergency call from work." I looked at him. The lie came so easily, I almost admired its muscle memory. Marin turned from her mother. "No," she said, "everyone went quiet." Bennett smiled too quickly. "Marin, you have had a terrible scare." She looked at him with the bluntness only a frightened teenager can still possess. "Your picture was turned around. I heard you tell my mom Fiona was needed at the shelter, but she said she was supposed to be there." Charles looked at Bennett. The diner seemed to shrink. Officer McCabe glanced at me, not intervening, not yet. I reached into my purse and took out my phone. Not dramatically, just enough. I opened Bennett's texts. "Actually, maybe let me lead conversation tonight. Charles needs to see me, not us. Then. Please do not call, then. Thank you for understanding." I did not hand the phone to anyone, not there. Marin had enough, Claudia had enough, police still needed to finish. I simply looked at my husband and said, "Do not use my work to lie about why I was not allowed in my own home." Claudia's face changed with each word. Charles's did not, that was worse. Bennett's voice dropped. "This is not the place." I looked around the diner. Marcy at the counter, 2 officers, a teenage girl in my coat, a news camera visible through the window, his boss and boss's wife standing in melted snow. "You are right," I said. "This was not the place I was supposed to be tonight." Then I sat back down beside Marin, because the room did not need my marriage yet. It needed her statement finished. That is what Bennett never understood. In a real crisis, the most important person is not the man with the most to lose. It is the person who has just been hurt. The next hour moved in pieces. Police located the rideshare account. The app showed the ride had been canceled after pickup. A nearby gas station camera later caught the SUV. The driver was found 2 days later. I will not turn that part into a thriller because it was not mine to dramatize. What mattered was that Maren got out. She was believed. Her parents stayed with her. A victim advocate arrived and took over with a softness that made Maren's shoulders finally lower. The local news segment aired at 10. I did not see it live. Bennett did. So did everyone still at my house. I know because Nadine texted me from Wisconsin at 10:06. Why are you on Channel 8 in a diner without a coat? Are you safe? Then my phone flooded. 2 coworkers, 1 county supervisor. Marcy sent a photo of the diner television. There I was on the screen, sitting beside Maren, whose face was blurred, both of us wrapped in a blanket the diner kept for stranded travelers. The caption read, "Local woman helps teen escape dangerous rideshare situation during Christmas Eve snow." The anchor said, "The woman, identified as Fiona Ashby, credits her work in county crisis housing for knowing how to approach a frightened young person safely." County crisis housing. The job Bennett had used as a lie. The job he had told me not to mention. The job that helped me know what to do. At 10:14, Claudia Renwick texted me. She must have gotten my number from Charles's phone. "That is the woman who protected our daughter. I said it in your dining room." Bennett had no answer. I read that message 3 times. Not because it felt victorious. Because it was the first time that night someone had said protected instead of heavy. I got home after midnight. I did not want to go back, but the house was mine too, and I refused to be exiled twice in one night. The driveway had tire tracks from multiple cars. The porch table still held the bakery bag, now empty. Bennett had warmed the rolls. That detail irritated me more than it should have. Inside, the house smelled like soup, candles, coffee, and panic. The table was half cleared. A wineglass had been left near Charles's place card. The ivory napkins were stained. My cranberry tart sat cut badly, as if someone angry had used the knife. Our wedding photo was still face down on the entry table. I picked it up. There we were, 8 years younger, standing under birch trees, Bennett looking at me like I was not something he would someday need to hide. I set it upright. Bennett came down the stairs. He had taken off the navy sweater. His shirt sleeves were rolled. His face looked exhausted, but not broken. Men like Bennett often mistake consequences for cruelty when they first arrive. "Where is she?" I asked. "Who?" "Maren." "Home with her parents. Police followed them." "Good." He stood at the bottom of the stairs. "Fiona, tonight got completely out of control." I looked at him. No, tonight revealed control. He rubbed his forehead. "Can we talk like adults?" "Were we adults when you handed me my coat?" His jaw tightened. "I made a mistake." "A mistake is forgetting the roles. You removed my place card. You turned our wedding photo around. You lied to your boss. You sent me away from my own home and used my job as cover. Those are decisions." He looked toward the dining room. "You embarrassed me in front of Charles." There it was. Not "thank you for helping a child." Not "I am sorry you were alone." Not "are you okay" after sitting with a terrified girl for hours in a diner. You embarrassed me. I felt something inside me go very still. "Bennett, a girl could have been hurt tonight, badly. I know that. Do you?" "Of course I do, but you made it sound like I threw you into the street." I looked at my coat hanging over the back of a chair, still damp from Maren's snow-wet hair. "You did, just politely." He flinched. Then he did what he always did when shame got too close. He reached for strategy. "I can fix this with Charles. I will call him tomorrow after things settle. We can explain that you misunderstood, that you were emotional because of the holidays, that—" I held up one hand. "Stop, Fiona. Do not build another lie with me inside it." He stared at me. For a moment, I think he understood that the old marriage had ended somewhere between the porch and the diner. Not legally, not yet, but morally. Something had stepped out into the snow and not returned. I went upstairs, packed an overnight bag, took my medication, my laptop, my mother's silver bracelet, and the printed copy of Bennett's proposal binder from the office. He stood in the bedroom doorway. "Where are you going?" "Nadine's house, she left me the key. It's Christmas." I zipped the bag. "Yes, I noticed. You are really going to leave because of one bad night." I turned to him. "No, I am leaving because tonight was not the first bad night. It was the first one with witnesses." He said nothing. That was good. I was too tired for another lie. Nadine lived in a small blue duplex near Chester Creek. She was out of town, but the key was under the ceramic frog on her porch because she trusted me with ordinary things. I slept on her couch under a quilt that smelled like laundry soap and her cinnamon candles, and in the morning, I woke to 23 unread messages. Bennett had sent 9, "I am sorry, please come home." Charles is not answering me. We need to discuss what happened before people start making assumptions. Fiona, this could affect my job. That last one came at 5:48 in the morning. I stared at it while Christmas morning light came weakly through Nadine's curtains. This could affect my job, not my wife, not our marriage, his job. I took screenshots of every message. Old habit, work habit, survival habit. At 10, Claudia called. I almost did not answer because I did not want to be pulled into the Renwick family's aftermath. But when I picked up, her voice was gentle. "Fiona, I am sorry to call on Christmas. I wanted to thank you without everyone around. How is Marin?" "Sleeping, shaken, safe. She asked if you had your coat back." That made my throat tight. "Tell her I do." A pause. "I also owe you an apology." "For what?" "For sitting at your table and accepting the explanation that you had a work emergency. I noticed your place was missing. I noticed the turned photograph. I allowed myself to be polite instead of curious." I closed my eyes. Polite instead of curious. That described half the harm in the world. "You did not know." "No," she said, "but I saw enough to wonder. I did not ask because it was easier not to." I appreciated that more than a perfect apology. Then she said, "Charles has asked Bennett to meet with him and Human Resources on Tuesday. You may be contacted because the community impact statement he submitted includes language about your work. We need to verify whether you contributed." There it was, the binder, the exact stake. The $740,000 contract, the promotion, the polished house, the dinner table, the hidden wife. All of it connected by paper. "I contributed significantly," I said. "Do you have records?" I almost laughed. "Yes." Of course I had records. Bennett had married the wrong woman, if he thought I would not. The public exposure did not happen all at once. It happened in meetings, emails, quiet calls, and one conference room where Bennett finally had to hear other people read the truth out loud. On Monday, my county supervisor, Denise Acaffer, called me into her office. She had seen the news segment and received an inquiry from Lakefront Meridian asking whether I was authorized to reference county housing work in a private proposal. I had not referenced it. Bennett had, but I had edited the language to remove confidential details and keep it ethical. Denise slid a printed copy of the proposal across her desk. "Did you write this section?" I revised it. His original draft was vague and used client language badly. "Did he have permission to imply a partnership with our office?" I read the paragraph. Lakefront Meridian's community-centered design approach is informed by direct collaboration with county crisis, housing professionals, and lived experience consultants. My stomach tightened. "No," I told him not to phrase it that way. "Do you have that?" I opened my email. Of course I had that too. 3 weeks earlier, I had written, "Bennett, you cannot imply formal county collaboration. You can say the plan is informed by best practices and public reports. Do not mention my office as if they are part of the proposal." He had replied, "Relax, no one is going to audit a sentence." Denise read it, removed her glasses, and sighed. Fiona, I know this is personal, but now it is also professional. I need you to send me that thread. I understand. She looked at me with something like sadness. Are you safe at home? That question almost broke me. Not because Bennett had hit me. He had not because I feared going back physically. I did not. Because being asked if I was safe made me realize how long I had been emotionally managing a house that could throw me out without raising a hand. I am staying with a friend, I said. Good, take the week, paid, do not argue with me. I did not. Tuesday's meeting happened at Lakefront Meridian's main office, a glass building near the harbor where every conference room had a name related to navigation. The room was called North Star. That felt too on the nose, but life has no respect for subtlety. I was not originally supposed to attend. Bennett had told Charles that involving me would be emotionally counterproductive. Claudia corrected that with one sentence. The woman who found our daughter will be allowed in the room where her name was used. So I came, not alone. Denise came as a county representative because the proposal had misused our office language. Nadine came because I needed someone whose loyalty was not up for performance. And Charles had HR, legal counsel, and the director of the St. Adalyn Clinic project present. Bennett sat on one side of the table with his laptop closed, face pale, wedding ring still on, as if metal could argue for him. Charles sat at the head. Claudia was there too, not as an employee, but as Marin's mother and a member of the clinic's family advisory council. She wore a dark green sweater and no jewelry except a thin gold band. When I entered, Bennett stood halfway. Fiona. I did not sit beside him. That may sound small. It did not feel small. Charles began. We are here to address 3 matters. First, the safety incident involving my daughter. Second, the accuracy of proposal materials submitted by Mr. Ashby. Third, potential conduct concerns related to misrepresentation of a spouse's professional role and presence at a company-hosted dinner. Bennett's attorney was not there because this was an internal meeting, not a lawsuit, but he had the expression of a man wishing he had one. Charles looked at me. Fiona, before we discuss documents, I want to thank you again. My daughter is home because you did not ignore her. I nodded. I am glad she is safe. Bennett shifted in his chair. Charles looked at him. Bennett, did you tell us on Christmas Eve that Fiona had been called to a shelter emergency? Bennett swallowed. Yes. Was that true? Long silence. No. Claudia closed her eyes briefly. Charles continued. Why was your wife not present at a dinner, hosted in your home for this project? Bennett glanced at me, then at the table. I made a judgment call. Nadine made a tiny sound beside me, but did not speak. Charles said, use plain language. I almost looked at him then. Use plain language was something I said to clients all the time when paperwork was being used as fog. Bennett's face tightened. I asked her not to attend. Why? He took a breath. I thought the evening would go more smoothly. Claudia's voice was quiet. Because Fiona makes rooms feel heavy. Bennett's head lifted. I did not know how she knew that exact sentence. Then I remembered Marin. Teenagers hear everything, especially when adults think they are silent decorations. Bennett said nothing. Charles turned to me. Is that what he said? I opened my folder. Yes, along with several texts showing he wanted me absent so you would see him rather than us. I placed the printed texts on the table. Actually, maybe let me lead conversation tonight. Charles needs to see me, not us. Please do not call. Dinner going well. Thank you for understanding. Then I placed a photo from my phone. Our wedding picture face down on the entry table, taken after I returned home. I had documented the room before I touched any thing. Bennett looked at it and whispered, you took pictures. I looked at him. You turned one over. That landed harder than I expected. The legal counsel asked about the proposal language next. Denise provided the email where I warned Bennett not to imply county collaboration. Then she showed the submitted version where he had done exactly that. She did not raise her voice. She did not accuse. She simply read. That is the thing about documents. They do not need to be angry to be damning. Bennett tried once to explain. The intention was not to mislead. It was to communicate values. Denise looked at him. Values are not partnerships. Charles leaned back. Bennett, did Fiona help write the community impact section? She edited. Substantially, he hesitated. Yes. Did she give permission for her work or role to be presented as support for your proposal? Not formally. Plain language. Bennett closed his eyes. No. Claudia looked at me then. There was sympathy in her face, but not pity. I was grateful for that. Pity looks down, sympathy sits beside. The meeting ended with Lakefront Meridian removing Bennett from the Centadalin proposal, pending internal review. The contract evaluation would continue under another project lead. His promotion was frozen. HR would review his use of company materials, client representations, and conduct around a company event hosted at his home. No one fired him in the room. No one shouted. No one threw him out into the snow. Consequences do not have to be theatrical to be real. As we stood to leave, Bennett caught my arm lightly. I looked down at his hand. He let go. Fiona, please. Please what? His eyes were red. Do not let this be the story of us. I looked at the man I had loved, the man who once brought soup to my mother, the man who listened to me describe shelter laundry rooms like they mattered, because they did. I looked at the man who later used the same work to excuse my absence from my own table. You wrote the story, I said. I just stopped letting you narrate it alone. Nadine drove me back to her duplex. Halfway there, she reached over and turned down the radio. I am going to say something, and you may hate it. That has never stopped you. Good, you are not required to save him, because you are good in emergencies. I looked out the window at the frozen harbor. That sentence followed me for months. You are not required to save him, because you are good in emergencies. I had built a life around being useful in other people's worst moments. It was meaningful work. It still is. But somewhere along the line, Bennett had mistaken my steadiness for endless access. If I could sit with strangers in crisis, surely I could sit quietly through my own erasure. If I could remain calm when a client yelled, surely I could remain calm when my husband lied. If I could make a plan under pressure, surely I could fix the damage he created. I did not fix it. I filed for legal separation in January. Not dramatically. Through an attorney named Alma Rios, recommended by Denise, who specialized in clean, careful exits, and had the calm voice of someone who had seen every version of, but it was just one night, used as a smokescreen for years. Alma asked me what I wanted from the house. I said, my half and my dignity. She said, dignity is not a line item, but we can protect the conditions around it. I liked her immediately. Bennett fought at first. Not with rage, with persuasion. He sent emails about counseling. He said the holidays had triggered both of us. He said he had been under immense professional pressure. He said he had never intended to make me feel unwanted. I sent Alma the porch texts, the proposal email, the meeting summary, and one line from Bennett's Christmas morning message. This could affect my job, she wrote back. That tells me enough. The news segment faded from public attention within days, as news segments do. But in my private life, that 10-second clip remained a dividing line. Before it, I was the wife Bennett could hide with a sentence. After it, I was the woman people had seen doing exactly what he had called heavy. Marin sent me a card in February. Inside she had written, Dear Fiona, I remember that you asked before putting your coat around me. Everyone kept saying they were glad I was safe, but you made me feel like I was still a person while I was scared. I am sorry you were not at your own dinner. I am glad you were at the diner. Marin. I cried over that card longer than I cried over the separation papers. There is a terrible mercy in being rejected into the place where you are needed. I do not romanticize it. Bennett's cruelty did not become good because I helped someone afterward. But I can hold two truths without forcing them to cancel each other. He should not have sent me away. And because I was sent away, Marin was not alone in the snow. In March, the St. Adalin contract was awarded to Lakefront Meridian under a different project lead, a woman named Priya Shah, who called Denise before submitting the revised proposal and asked for public reports, not informal leverage. That mattered to me. The clinic still got built. Families still got better spaces. Bennett did not get to attach his ambition to my work without permission. He kept his job after review, but not the promotion. Charles moved him out of hospital projects and into internal operations for the year. Some people might think that was too little. Some might think it was enough. I stopped measuring my healing by the size of his consequence. That was new for me. For years, I believed if someone finally saw what had happened, I would feel free immediately. But being believed is not the same as being healed. It is only the door opening. You still have to walk out. I moved into a small apartment near the lake in April. It had old radiators, narrow closets, and a kitchen window facing a brick wall with one stubborn vine growing up it. I bought a round table for two, then laughed at myself and bought 4 chairs anyway. Not because I planned to host perfect dinners. Because no one should build a life around the fear of empty chairs. On my first night there, I made tomato soup, burned the grilled cheese, and ate at the table with my phone turned off. No candles, no proposal binder, no place cards, just me, quiet and fully allowed in the room. Months later, Denise asked me to tour the finished St. Adalin waiting area as part of the county advisory group. The clinic looked warm, not glossy. Soft lighting. Family rooms with doors that closed. A teen quiet room with weighted blankets and charging stations. On a wall where children could leave notes about what helped them feel safe, Marin had written one line: "Ask before touching." I stood there for a long time. I thought about the snowy parking lot, my coat held open, and a frightened girl deciding whether to trust a stranger. Then I thought about my own front porch, my husband holding my coat like removal was kindness. Same object, different meaning. A coat can be care. A coat can be exile. The difference is whether the person wearing it gets a choice. Bennett and I finalized the separation before the next Christmas. The house was sold. Not to punish him. Not to create a dramatic ending. Because neither of us could afford it alone, and because I did not want to keep walking through a doorway where I had once been told my grief made the table less perfect. At closing, he looked older. So did I, probably. He said, "I never stopped loving you." I believed him in the limited way the sentence deserved. "Maybe," I said, "but you stopped choosing me when it cost you something." He did not argue. That was the closest thing to agreement we had left. The following Christmas Eve, I worked half a day at the county office, then volunteered for the evening shelter meal because I wanted to, not because I was running from a house that did not want me. Afterward, I went to the Blue Spruce Diner. Marcy was working. She pointed to the same booth. "Reserved," she said. I smiled. "You take reservations now." "Only for women who cause news coverage and tip like guilt." I sat in the booth by the window. Snow fell again, softer this time. Marcy brought coffee and fries without asking. For a moment, I could see that other version of myself sitting across from me. Navy dress, cold hands, trying not to cry, thinking she had been removed from the important room. I wish I could tell her something. Not that everything would be fine, that is too cheap. I would tell her that being pushed out of the wrong room can show you who you are when no one is staging you. I would tell her that some people only value warmth when it lights their table. I would tell her that a woman can be called heavy by someone who is too weak to carry truth. And I would tell her that the diner counted, the coat counted, the calm voice counted. The life she built before Bennett ever decided whether it photographed well counted. My husband sent me away on Christmas Eve. Then he saw me on the news, holding his boss's daughter. He thought the perfect room would prove who he was. But the snowy parking lot, the diner booth, the police report, and a frightened girl's thank you card proved something else. They proved that the parts of me he wanted hidden were the parts that mattered most when the night became real. That is my story. If someone has ever made you feel like your pain, your kindness, or your truth was too heavy for the room, tell me what you would have done. Would you have gone home, stayed quiet, or let the evidence speak for itself? Share this with someone who needs permission to stop making themselves smaller for someone else's perfect table. Before you go, tell me your name and the city you're watching from. I want to know where this story found you.